give now the floor to Stefano Gesuelli. Thank you very much and good afternoon. After such profound and sentimental presentation, it is difficult to talk about technical things. Many of the issues mentioned by our dear professor dealing with corruption are also things that are very much interconnected with the topic I'm going to talk today. What has been our experience economically wise in terms of combating organized crime? And why do I say this? Well, I'm leaving my presentation with all the slides and you will get everything. But I will start by making a little bit of history here. We have great fundings of ancient societies. We had the monarchy, the republic, the Roman Empire, and we have archaeological findings that tell us how these societies were. If you know the history of Romulus and Remus, the first king, the founder of Rome was Romulo, and we have an archaeological park with the first royal palace. It is a 400 square meter palace. The square meter was not as expensive as it is today at the time. The same institutional palace, the royal palace that we have in Crete, we have a palace with 10,000 square meters. We can say that this is due to the different development of the societies. But the issue is not that. There is a set of causes, and the professor mentioned this. It doesn't make you a public servant of a state. The palace, the 4 square meter palace, was just next door to the religious power and the state power. So the same public function that we see in many Latin American capitals, I think about Bogota, for example, the 3 powers, the legislative, the religious power, the church, an inheritance of colonial Spanish times, and the state. In any European country, the mayor's office is near the palace, near the church, near the square. This is a Western concept that is meant to tell us that all these powers work together to serve the citizens. What does the organized crime want? They want to disrupt this structure or this power. Organized crime is mainly this. They want to do away with all this structure. Those who have experience in Europe, they say, what do they see? Well, you see they have huge houses, airplanes, cars, goods that in the morning session were mentioned. There are people that have no access to life. They have it. There is the magic of water. They take water supply. This not only happens in Europe, but it happens in many places. There's no water for agriculture, but these people, they have fountains and swimming pools in their houses. So organized crime has a very strong economic connotation that we have to combat, or we have to take advantage of this because it's also its weakness. An army, if it has no money to buy soldiers, they will have means and ways to corrupt public servants. So if we take advantage of this need, this weakness of organized crime, then we can have some success. I don't believe that the military response is the correct one. The military, well, we are a customs authority, a financial authority, a market regulation authorities, a, a prosecutor's office, all in the same institution, aimed at combating financial and economic illegal actions. I'm talking about domestic taxes, customs, markets, or criminal actions. When we talk about corruption, money laundering, smuggling, drug trafficking, everything that is illegal and that can cross the border. So, very briefly, I want to talk about the Italian experience. There is a legendary origin of the different forms of organized crime in Italy. When the royal family, the Bourbons, had some territories in the south of Italy. It is said, and some criminal organizations still do this. There was this gentleman, or these gentlemen that were imprisoned because they tried to react to an alleged action by a local administrator of the royal court. They were in prison 20 years. They planned how to escape from prison and to develop an organization that could contrast with the power at the time that was Spain. The reality is not, I mean, it's not so poetic, it's not a legend. There was no feeling of rebellion, but very probably, and the first parliamentary investigation commission on these events also reached the same conclusion. The origin was the abandonment of certain areas of the country by the king that was in another country. They were not able to control these areas, and people began to self-organize themselves. When the country was reunited, there was no strategic vision to include these persons in the new state, but rather to isolate them. And they continued doing what they had been done generation after generation. And so all this crime was taking place in the rural areas. There was livestock theft and many other actions. But we went from agricultural, rural organized crime to an economic organized crime when in 1930 we had these people migrating to the United States. They had to forcefully migrate to the United States. That gave them the possibility for smuggling and trafficking. Everybody knows about Al Capone. It's a change of paradigm. Let's not think small. Let's think big. Let's think about business and how can we be part of this business. This created the phenomenon of liquid organized crime. Why liquid organized crime? Because it was very difficult to take action against economic organized crime and political organized crime. This liquid crime, organized crime or criminal organization makes it very difficult to note the difference between illegal and legal actions. Just think about what we do, what the financial platforms do for banking system and for the market. So these people, they had savings, they had legal companies that are doing business with other countries. This morning we talk about fiscal havens. But these people had ill-gotten income that use the same platform for the financial and banking actions. And it's very difficult to know what is what. In Italy, in all plans against money laundering, we have the tax evasion crime. You know that money laundering has a cost. If I include tax evasion, false billing, I can recover part of the cost for money laundering. If I have to establish 10 paper companies for money laundering, then this is no problem. So we can not only talk about money laundering alone. Now, how have we come to combat this increasing organized crime? With an evolutive regulation that began in the late 1960s when we saw the futility of continuing with prohibition and restriction and using the military. We began working on three fundamental pillars. One, to have or establish the type of crime. Second, everything that has to do with economy. And third, to increase international cooperation. Talking about the crime, till the 1970s, we did not pursue crimes of organized crime. We were just going after murder, assassination, theft. So there was no real criminal action against these types of organization. So sometimes we put an end to the actions of one organization, but then we had another group that was doing the same. So once we were able to typify the crimes in the 1970s, we were able to do maximum processes. That is, to be able to catch not only one or two individuals of an organized, of a criminal organization, but the whole organization, all the members. I can attack the whole organization if I can prove that their income is coming from an illegal source. We were able to process many individuals together because there was a crime that was typified differently, and we were able to do that. The second pillar are the pension regimes. In the 1980s, we began working on this. There was, as I said, we were able to do away with one organization, but immediately we had another. So we had to cut any possibility of sending instructions from the prison to those who were outside. They were in a prison because of a crime, and while in the crime, they were still committing crimes. We have mafias in trafficking in persons. People from Greece, Spain know that. Or the southern part of the European Union, they are applying the same legislation. And this leads us to economic contrast that happens when a crime is committed. Why? Because we have stronger tools in that case. We have confiscation. I don't have to prove that that money or that good was the product of a crime. The fact that I can prove that you were trafficking in drugs for a certain amount gives me the possibility of confiscate money and goods for such an amount. Same thing happens with linking legal economy with illegal economy. If there is confiscation, what was the problem here? Well, I am a businessman. I'm being investigated for criminal actions. How can I justify certain money and certain goods? I say, well, there has been tax evasion, so I pay a fine. So, but this doesn't solve the problem because this helps them to launder money. So what we do is that the stated income is there. And if you are involved in criminal actions and you cannot demonstrate through your stated income how you are in the possession of certain goods, they can be confiscated. You will have to justify all that, and this added to tax evasion crime is an important tool. And the third pillar, which for us is very important, is
como extinción de dominio. La extinción de dominio, nosotros la llamamos medida cautelares, no.
Provisionary measures. The genesis of this is quite peculiar. Italy had a dictatorship till up to the Second World War, with a very strong concept of the state, with a lot of innovation in criminal law. So a number of measures, precautionary measures, were introduced on persons that were considered dangerous or harmful for society. People dealing with prostitution, people that had no job, people who lived in the streets, that at the time seemed to be dangerous for law and order. If the social order of the state has to do with persons, we can also think that in the 20th century there is an economic public order. So the intuition, I'm talking about the late 1960s and up to the 1980s, the logic was to apply the same measure we applied to individuals, since there was no need for public order, to what can be a company that could harm the economy. A procedure parallel to the criminal procedure, something we can solve with a judge. These were precautionary measures to confiscate goods and monies of individuals that can use them harmfully for the economy. This can be very effective when making decisions and avoiding uh, worse consequences. I don't think I have time to go into detail. Then we have management of goods or administration of goods. The state must manage these confiscated goods in a transparent manner. If there is an option, you have to have a transparent option. You have to guarantee an open and transparent management of these goods. Otherwise, the system will not work. And believe me, because we have had examples of mismanagement, and the goods came back to the same organization from which they were confiscated. And this is fundamental for any state or government that wants to adopt similar measures. The third pillar that has been very useful in combating organized crime, international cooperation. Everybody this morning have talked about this. International cooperation is fundamental not only for the criminal facts, but also to identify and confiscate assets to
Fundamental de la cooperación internacional, por lo menos hablo a nivel de país europeo.
compensate victims. The European Union system is very, very advanced. Today, we take all this action to identify, freeze, and confiscate assets abroad. And international cooperation is a great tool for this purpose. We didn't have that tool till very recently. Today we can reach these goods that are in other countries, not only European countries, but in many other countries. And through agreements, bilateral agreements, we can reach there and confiscate them. I think we need to find an indicator to see if this is working or not. This is data from real investigation. When you investigate criminal groups and criminal organizations that are important, you can always find their accountability. So we check how they spend their money. In 20 years back, in 2001, a person, a middle person in any criminal organization could earn 6,000 to 7,000 euros. In dollars would be 8,500. That is what they earn, and if they went to prison, their families would earn that same amount. This is data from 2016, 2017. The same individual in an organized crime doesn't earn more than 2,000 euros. I'm talking about 2016 and 2017, and that is a salary you can get in any job, honest, decent job. And when they go to prison with a salary that is lower than 20 years back, the families get less than 1,000 euros, which is not enough money. A part-time student can earn 1,800, for example. So today they are not paying attractive salaries, and when the people go to prison, they can't even maintain those salaries for the families. And I think that this is the true result that we have achieved. To conclude, I think we have to be innovative in this fight. We continue talking about money or asset laundering, and we have the idea that people go to a bank with a bag full of money. Today, particularly in advanced economies, this doesn't work like that. Money and asset laundering are within the financial institutions, and this is even more dangerous by using the market or abusing the market or abusing companies in other markets. And for example, the small investors are being robbed. They are not using cash. We are always thinking about cash, but today cash exists no more. It's old-fashioned. You have to look for the connection or deconnection. They try to deconnect the effective property. That is why Gafi stresses so much about the ultimate beneficiary. They have to disconnect them. You have to connect to make this connection between the goods and the money and the ultimate beneficiary. If you want to catch a person with a bag full of money, that is not possible anymore. There is an English expression that says that sometimes you drive your car looking at the rear mirror. Usually we are used to investigate. I'm talking about the police, the prosecution, the different authorities according to precedence. In a world like today's world, where transactions take seconds and where money is dematerialized, where most of the trade is in services. We have phone cards, for example. There's no money in phone cards, and still there is crime. There is tax fraud. There is tax evasion. There is smuggling. So in today's world, we have to be visionary. We have to be innovative to see where or how can we develop an antibody. And I think that is the challenge we all face. And it's good to be aware that these are the problems so that we can fix them. So with this, I conclude, and if there are any questions, I would gladly answer them. Thank you for your attention. And we see